Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are wrestling with a topic that is, quite frankly, massive, and I don't use that word lightly.
No, this is a big
We're
one.
looking at a stack of sources that are trying to do something that, well, it usually breaks the brains of physicists and philosophers alike. We're talking about a unified field theory, that
Yeah.
holy grail of science. But this material, it tries to bridge general relativity, quantum mechanics, and theology.
Which is a tall order. I mean, usually you have the physicists at one table and the theologians at another, and they are definitely not sharing lunch.
They might even be throwing food at each other.
Right. But the material we're covering today, which centers on this life Zen courtyard philosophy, it argues you actually can't understand one without the others. They're basically saying the cafeteria is one big room, and everyone's just been staring at different corners.
Exactly. And to navigate this, we need to get our terminology straight right out of the gate. The central figure here, the force behind it all, is referred to as the greatest creator.
Right, and the text is very specific about that.
Very specific. They replace the traditional term God, so we're going to stick to that. And the core premise is that the universe isn't just a random collection of rocks and gas, but a singular organism governed by a force called Tao.
Right. And just to frame our mission here, we're not here to convert anyone, and this is definitely not a standard physics class. We're exploring a specific framework that claims to solve the blind spots of modern science.
The blind spots.
Yeah, the source material argues that science has hit a wall because it's obsessed with the material world, what they call positive matter, and it completely ignores the antimatter world, the spiritual realm.
And just to set the tone, some of the ideas we're going to hit are pretty out there. We've got parallel universes, life forms made of antimatter.
And oddly specific coordinates for the afterlife.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot to take in. It feels a bit like reading a physics textbook that was co-authored by a mystic.
It is. But what's fascinating is how the text asks us to shift our perspective. It demands holographic thinking. It wants us to stop looking at things in isolation, like studying a single leaf and ignoring the tree, and start seeing the connections between a subatomic particle and the entire cosmos. It's asking us to zoom out until everything just looks like one thing.
So let's unpack this. We have to start where the text starts, with the limits of science. And I have to say, I have never heard scientific theory explained with a pants analogy before.
It's a memorable image, isn't it? It really highlights the friction in modern physics in a way that, well, anyone can visualize.
So the text presents this conflict between Einstein's general relativity, which handles the big stuff, gravity, stars, galaxies.
The macro world.
Right. And then you have quantum mechanics, which handles the tiny stuff, subatomic particles, all that weird probabilistic stuff. And apparently, they really don't get along.
That's completely accurate to the history of physics. They're two wildly successful theories that describe the universe in fundamentally different languages. General relativity describes space as smooth and curving, like a sheet. Quantum mechanics describes the world as chunky, pixelated and probabilistic. The math just doesn't play nice together.
Right.
So the source material uses this analogy. Imagine quantum field theory is one pant leg and general relativity is the other.
Okay, so they're separate. They don't touch.
They don't touch, which is a problem if you're trying to wear them. You're just holding two tubes of fabric.
You need a waistband.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And physicists have been trying to find a way to connect them, to sew the pants together. And the text points to superstring theory as the scientific community's attempt to be that waistband.
Right. Superstring theory. That's the one that says everything, quarks, electrons, all of it, is made of tiny vibrating strings, like little cosmic violin string.
Correct. If they vibrate one way, it's an electron. Vibrate another, it's a photon. It's a beautiful mathematical idea.
But the text we're diving into today is pretty harsh on it. He calls it childish. What's the beef with strings?
Well, the critique is more philosophical than mathematical. The text argues that superstring theory fails because it describes how the strings vibrate, but it can't explain where the strings came from or, who started them vibrating.
So it's looking at the mechanism but ignoring the source.
Precisely.
So it's like describing exactly how a guitar string makes a sound, the frequency, the tension, but refusing to acknowledge that there's a guitarist plucking it.
Exactly that. Or wondering why the guitar is playing a song without asking who wrote the music. The text argues that this is the blind spot of science. It focuses entirely on the material world, the positive matter.
Right.
But the text claims you cannot find the unified field in matter alone. You have to include the antimatter world.
Okay, now we need to clarify antimatter here.
Yeah.
Because usually in physics, antimatter is just matter with an opposite charge, a positron and an electron.
Right, and if they touch, they annihilate. Boom.
Yeah. Is that what they mean? Are they saying the greatest creator is made of explosive particles?
Not exactly. They're sort of borrowing the term, but redefining it for their framework. In this context, antimatter refers to the non-material realm, the spiritual realm, consciousness, information. They're saying the universe has a visible front side.
Which science studies.
And an invisible backside.
So the waistband that connects the macro and the micro isn't a mathematical formula. It's this antimatter realm. It's the greatest creator.
That is the argument, that the
Yeah.
unified field is actually the consciousness of the greatest creator, which is often called the Tao. The Tao is what flows through both the stars and the atoms, connecting them.
This leads us right into this concept of the holographic universe. This is the part of the reading that really made me just stop and think. Because we hear hologram and we think of, what, Star
It's
Wars?
a Star Wars, or a sticker on a credit card.
Yeah. But universal holography implies something much deeper about how information is stored.
It does, and it's a concept that has popped up in physics before. David Bohm talked about it, but this text applies it spiritually. The text uses the needle in the toe analogy, which is great.
I like that one.
Yeah. If you prick your toe with a needle, your brain feels it instantly. You don't have to send a courier with a message up your leg.
Right. There's no delay. I don't look down 5 minutes later and say, oh, look, I'm bleeding.
Exactly. The body is a single interconnected organism. The text argues the universe works the same way. It's one body, the greatest creator's body, essentially.
And they use the broken mirror visual, too, because usually if I tear a photograph in half, I get the left side and you get the right. I don't see your half.
Right. You lose information.
Okay.
But a holographic plate is different. If you have a holographic film of, say, an apple, and you smash it into dust, every single speck of that dust still contains the image of the whole apple.
The whole apple.
The whole apple. It might be fuzzier, but the information is all there.
And the implication of that is massive. The text says one human cell contains the information of the whole body, which, okay, DNA, that's genetically true. But then it takes it this huge step further. It says one human being contains the information of the whole universe.
That is the core of their holographic thinking. If the universe is a hologram, then every part contains the whole.
That is a heavy concept. I am the universe. It sounds very mystical, but they try to ground it in this structure of the Tao. So if the Tao is the operating system running this hologram, how does it actually function?
Well, I think it runs a bit smoother than Windows. The Tao is described as the consciousness of the greatest creator, and it has some very specific characteristics. First, it's chaotic.
Not messy chaotic, though.
No, not messy. Chaotic in the mathematical sense of the butterfly effect.
Ah, right. A butterfly flaps its wings in Alaska and causes a storm in the Cape of Good Hope.
Exactly. Everything is connected to everything else. But the second characteristic is instant sensing. Because the universe is holographic, the Tao reacts to every thought and action immediately. It operates at zero time.
Zero time. So faster than the speed of light. Einstein would like a word.
Yes. The text argues that the speed of light is a limit for the material world, for positive matter. But the Tao transcends it. It says that zero is the most magical number. It's the hub that connects 20 parallel worlds.
The origin and the destination.
Right.
It's interesting how they mix math and spirituality. It's like, if I have a thought, the Tao knows instantly. There's no lag time.
That is the takeaway. There are no secrets in a holographic universe. You can't hide a thought in a corner of your mind because that corner is connected to the center of the cosmos.
So if the Tao is the operating system, what are we actually made of? The text introduces this master key idea, the three elements of the universe.
This is a crucial framework. The text claims everything in the universe, a star, a person, a ghost, is made of three things: consciousness, structure, and energy.
Okay, let's break those down. Consciousness is the blueprint, the software.
Exactly. Consciousness, or yi, shi, is the software. Structure, ji, gu, is the form, which can be material or antimatter. And energy, neng liang, is the fuel.
I really like the analogy they use for structure, comparing diamond and graphite.
It's a perfect example. A diamond and a piece of graphite-like pencil lead are made of the exact same stuff. carbon atoms.
Same material.
Same material. But the structure, how those atoms are arranged, is different. And because of that,
The value is wildly different. One is the hardest substance on Earth, the other crumbles.
exactly. And the text applies this to our lives. It argues that people trying to change their lives by getting more energy, more money, more power, more coffee. But the text says that's useless if you don't change your life structure.
Right. If your structure is graphite, pouring more energy in just makes you a high-energy piece of graphite. You're just a louder, faster pencil.
That's a powerful way to put it. We focus so much on acquiring things, energy, rather than becoming something different.
So how do you change the structure? I assume you can't just squeeze yourself really hard. What's the mechanism?
That brings us back to the first element, consciousness. The text argues that consciousness determines structure. The software builds the hardware.
And it references the water crystal experiment here, doesn't it?
It does, the work of Masaru Emoto. Now, we should say, this is controversial in the scientific community.
Right.
But within the logic of this text, it's used as proof. The claim is that water forms beautiful, symmetrical crystals when exposed to positive words like love, and ugly blobs when exposed to negative words like hate.
So the idea is that the water molecules, the structure, physically change based on the consciousness directed at them.
Yes. It reinforces the idea that the observer in quantum mechanics isn't just watching. The observer is creating the result. If you change your consciousness, you physically change the structure of your life.
This leads to a kind of ranking system then, a ladder of life. And honestly, it gets pretty judgmental about where humans stand.
We aren't exactly at the top of the food chain here, no. It's very systematic. It goes from animals to humans, then up to celestials, Buddhas, gods, and finally the greatest creator.
And they put a number on it. They actually calibrate the energy levels. It reminded me of a video game.
They do. It seems to be referencing a scale from 1 to 1,000, probably borrowing from David Hawkins. The text claims most humans vibrate below 200.
Ouch. Below 200. That feels low. I feel like I'm at least at 250 after my morning coffee.
Well, according to the text, Einstein was at 499.
Wait, hold on. The guy who invented general relativity, the genius of the century, didn't even crack 500? That is a tough grading curve. He failed the class.
It is. The implication is that Einstein had incredible intellectual energy, he understood the pants legs, but perhaps he hadn't fully crossed into the spiritual understanding that gets you to 500 plus.
So who gets a perfect score?
Figures like Laozi, Jesus, and Buddha are rated at 1,000. They're at the peak.
So the goal for you, the listener, according to this, isn't just to be smart or rich, but to raise your frequency from that sub-200 level up toward 1,000. It's an ascension game.
Correct.
So how do we do that? If I'm sitting at a solid 150, maybe 160 on a good day, how do I level up? The text mentions weeding the garden.
It's a metaphor for purification. You have to remove the weeds from your mind. Things like jealousy, anger, comparison, selfishness. But here's the key. These aren't just bad behaviors morally. The text argues they are energetic weights. They strictly drop your frequency.
So it's not just don't be a jerk because it's mean. It's don't be a jerk because it lowers your vibration.
Exactly. For example, it lists shame as level 20.
Level 20, that is basically rock bottom.
It's near death, energetically speaking. So the methodology involves the 8 no's achieving states like no self, no form, no debt. It's about stripping away the ego and attachments that keep the frequency low.
It sounds a bit like Buddhism, removing attachment. And service seems to be a big part of it too. The more you give, the more you have.
Right. The river analogy. A river that flows stays fresh. A river that stops flowing becomes a stagnant swamp. You have to be a conduit, not a container.
Okay, so let's say we weed the garden, we raise the frequency, we become a diamond. Where are we going? This is the part that blew my mind. The text gives actual addresses, like GPS coordinates for the afterlife.
It does. It moves from philosophy to what looks like cosmic geography. And the text claims these are real places.
So we've got the Millennium World.
The Millennium World. It's located 960 light years away. The claim is that humans who upgrade their life structure go there, and the lifespan is, well, 1,000 years.
And if you do even better, if you really polish that diamond,
Then you might aim for the 10,000-year world. That one is 3,480 light years away.
and that's the one with 16 suns.
Yes, 16 suns. The inhabitants are celestials. Higher energy, higher joy. And above that you have Elysium or the Celestial Islands.
But here's the catch, and this ties back to the beginning. If I take the James Webb Telescope and point it exactly 960 light years away, am I going to see the Millennium World?
No. And this is the antimatter twist. The text says these worlds are antimatter structures. The analogy they use is the front and back of a piece of paper.
Right.
We live on the front of the paper, the material world. These other realms are on the back. You can't see them with physical eyes.
So that explains why we haven't found them. It's like looking for a radio station, but you're tuned to the wrong frequency.
Exactly. You don't need a spaceship. You can't build a rocket to heaven. You have to transform your life structure from matter-based to antimatter-based. It's a frequency match.
It's a fascinating way to map out the universe. It turns the afterlife into a physics problem of frequency and structure.
It does. It takes the mystical and tries to make it mechanical.
So what does this all mean for us right now? We've covered a lot of theory.
I think the core message is about agency. The text says the universe is a programmed holographic system run by the greatest creator. We are actors in a script, yes, but we aren't helpless.
We can rewrite our character.
In a sense, by aligning with the Tao, which the text defines as nature, love, selflessness, we can upgrade our life structure. We have the power to alter the hologram because we are the hologram.
And there was a big emphasis on simplicity.
Yes. Complexity is confusion. Tao is simple. The text advises you to stop overcomplicating your life. Just like the water crystal responds to simple gratitude, our lives respond to simple, pure intent.
I like that. Keep it simple. But before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with one specific thought from the text that I found really provocative. It's about the other half.
Ah, yes. This is a very romantic, but also very physics-based concept.
The source suggests that because of the nature of particle physics matter and antimatter, we all have a spiritual other half, a particle to our antiparticle.
Right. It's the soulmate concept taken to the subatomic level. But the text says that if we meet them in these higher realms, we don't just get married and buy a house.
No dishes to argue over.
No, we annihilate.
Which sounds terrifying, honestly. Annihilation usually means destroyed.
In a military sense, yes. But in physics, annihilation creates massive energy. When matter and antimatter meet, they release 100% of their energy.
So it's a metaphor for spiritual union. We merge into a being of pure light.
Exactly. It suggests the goal isn't to settle down in this world, but to find that completion that allows us to leave it behind. It's the ultimate union that dissolves the individual ego.
So that is the question we will leave you with today. Are you building a life structure that anchors you here, adding more weight to your graphite? Or are you building one that prepares you to meet your other half, annihilate the ego, and transcend?
It is certainly something to think about next time you look up at the stars. Or, check your vibration level.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the greatest creator and the unification of science and spirit. We will catch you on the next one.